No. Alrighty. All right, we'll get started. Thank you all for being here. So I'm Elisa Wright with the Estuary Program. I'm the outreach specialist for, probably say the full name is St. Andrew and St. Joseph Bay's Estuary Program here in Panama City. And this is Hiking Talks. So we have a meeting monthly, second Thursday of each month. And we kind of come together and have different speakers come and tell us about specific topics that you all are interested in hearing about. So we're here to engage locals and visitors and learn about a range of relevant topics. We've covered water quality, upland management. This one is about outdoor recreation. So today with us, we have Brian Hamilton, Marina Superintendent from the Panama City Parks Culture and Recreation Department. Jennifer Vigil, President and CEO of Destination Panama City, and Melissa Updegrove with the Florida Trail Association. So we'll hear a few presentations from them about their expertise on some topics in outdoor recreation, and we'll have time for questions with each of them if you have any further questions. So we'll go ahead and get started. Brian, can you come on up?
I got a few more of these I can. Yeah.
Can everyone online hear us okay? You just give us a thumbs up.
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. Thank you, Daryl.
Okay, so good afternoon. My name is Brian Hamilton. I'm the Marina Superintendent for the City of Panama City. Keith Mefford asked me to come in give you a quick update of what we've got going on in the city. He's out of town. So first thing I wanted to do was kick it off with the hyperfuel that we're selling out at St. Andrews Marina. Back in June, we became the first marina outside of the state of Texas to offer hyperfuel, and what that is a blend of a sustainable fuel for marine gasoline engines. It is sponsored by the National Marine Manufacturers Association as well as Suzuki Marine. And what it is a blend of a sustainable fuel in combination with a regular ethanol free marine gasoline. It's proven to reduce emissions and increase fuel efficiency. And so far since June 2nd, we've sold upwards of 61,000 gallons of it. So there is a demand for it. Second thing I wanted to talk about was the construction kickoff at the St. Andrews Marina. We're pretty excited about that. Some of you may or may not know that we've got a private-public partnership going on with Gorman Marine and a couple other partners where they will be investing $12.3 million in infrastructure, and then the city will also invest about 12.9 to get the bulkheads back up to shape. We expect to have 50 slips completed by spring of next year, and we hope to have, boats fill that up once we're done. Some upgrades to the utilities, all the electric and water, as well as the stormwater runoff will be upgraded. And then in the phase 2, we're going to do complete bulkhead repair, and then a phase 2 expansion, which would include an additional 150 slips, as well as a day dock and redesigned fuel docks to make it easier to get in and out. Third thing that I'd like to get into was the Carl Gray Park grand reopening. We had a ribbon cutting ceremony out there on October 29th. That project cost $2.3 million, funded primarily by FEMA, with $175,000 coming from Bay County. Some of the upgrades included a retaining wall to mitigate erosion, and as well as restrooms, pavilions, and grills, and 2 playgrounds. So we're pretty excited about that one. And then the last thing I want to talk about was the Life Jacket Loaner Program. This was started last month, and it is a partnership with the CETO Foundation as well as the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary. The program was started in 2008 with more than 100,000 personal flotation devices made available to boaters free of charge. There are 13 life jacket stations currently in the Panhandle, stretching from Port St. Joe to Pensacola, and they offer sizes from infant to adult extra large. So we've got a lot going on in the city. Also, we've done 4 years in a row. We sponsored the International Coastal Cleanup Day with the Estuary Program, and we look to keep doing that next year. So With that, I'll take any questions you have.
Where's your hat?
In the car. Yeah, my wife doesn't think I have hair, but it's true.
I never seen it on a hat.
Anybody? Yes, ma'am.
I'm just curious on the pure fuels cost wise, how does it compare to?
Okay, so you have to play around with it. If it depends on, so the National Marine Manufacturers Association recommends 93 octane, which that's what they're pushing for the larger outboards. We don't really have a market for a 93 octane. So what we've done now is we are getting ready to switch to an 89 octane. If you do the 93, you have to blend it with something. You blend it with the 89 octane, you add 23% of the biofuel, but that drives your price up. If we drop it down to an 89, we blend it with an 87 octane, blend it with 8% of the biofuel. So it cuts our costs down. So it is quite a bit more expensive to get the 93. And like I said, there's not really a market in this area because those are your center consoles with 4 or 5 outboard motors. So we've dropped it down to accommodate this area and hopefully get it for a better price. Anyone else?
Quick question. So you've talked about a few different initiatives. So I'm wondering, how does your team approach kind of choosing, planning, and developing some of these projects?
Well, I'm kind of like the gatekeeper, and so I've been in this position for 3 years and I take on all comers. So if you got an idea, pitch it to me, and if we can work with it, we'll work with it. There has a tendency, since we are a city municipally owned marina, you know, we can get stagnant in things because we are basically a public service, but we try to, you know, we have the luxury to do new things and try new things. So we do want to be responsible in the community. So if you have a program or an idea that you'd like to pitch, just pitch it to me and we'll see what we can do. Yes, ma'am.
I'm just curious, your life jacket program, are people pretty honest? They return them when they borrow them?
Oh, we really don't care if you return them or not. I mean,
Oh, okay.
if you need one, take one. We've got one at the St. Andrews Marina. It's not sponsored by this program, but we have one where people will donate life jackets and I don't want to throw them away. So we hang them on a wall. If you need one, take one. I mean, we'll get more.
Okay,
If you have one to give, bring it.
that's a great idea, yeah.
Are you gonna be able to maintain the gift store at the marina or is?
Do not know. Do not know.
I tell you, if y'all haven't been to that little gift store on the marina, they have some great gifts. I tell you, the marketing that they're doing is excellent. And some of the funnest t-shirts I've seen.
And I appreciate the shameless plugs.
No, I mean, when I tell people to come down, you know, I tell them about that, and I also tell them about the dolphins that are right there at the end, and the sea turtle and the bull sharks.
Yeah, so we are going private. It will be, once we get to completion, at some point in time, we will change hands over to privately run. They will lease the marina property and then pay the city a certain percentage of gross revenue. I don't know exactly what those figures are, but they are trying to keep it as a working marina. That is in everybody's interest. And by working marina, I mean fishing boats, fishing charters, commercial fishing. We've even right now, we're working on getting the Navy sub out there that's a test vehicle. And we want to improve access to the citizens in the outgoing area. We want to get people out on the marina and have interest in there. If we get more people out there, we get an increased revenue and then we can put back into the marina. So that's what it's all about, is developing a kind of like a spill bucket fund so that we can put into maintenance and upkeep of the marina so that it can last another 60 years.
There's
Anyone
no
else?
comment online.
Yeah, I think Jessica posted a question somewhere in there.
Do you feel there's enough signage to advocate for a responsible boating recreation?
Do I feel there's enough signage?
So it says, do you feel that there are enough signs or effective signage at the marina to encourage responsible stewardship?
Well, okay, so just being honest, I'm not sure half the people can read, but we do have some things out there. We've got some PVC pipes that were made from a high school student that you can put your fishing line in. That was a really cost-effective way for people to, you know, help the sea turtles. We've got some other things out there, that is common sense things like,
Well, you've got the educational about the birds and stuff on.
yeah, there are those signs in along St. Andrews on the boardwalk at Bayview. There are educational signs that are sponsored by the Waterfront Partnership, I believe, and they are constantly maintained, so we keep those freshened up. I'm not sure what other signs we could put out there because the marina sits up here, the property sits up here, and the water line is down here. So anything you would have to be out on the rail. And most people do not look up at the rail. We could put signage, along the rail for people actually on the marina, but that would be very minimal.
Any manatees been coming in the basin lately?
No, there are no manatees in the panhandle. That's my official answer. Anyone else?
So I know you mentioned that some people bring in or like they donate life vests. Are there any other wish list items that your department would like to see?
No, the life vest, I mean, it's, that's a important part of vessel safety is the life vest. A lot of people in this area is really, I mean, we have a big issue with people coming down from all over the, the area or all over the United States, really, that get in a pontoon and just go out and never pay attention. So education on wearing the life vests, is very important. When you rent a pontoon, you should look and see where those life vests are stored. That is the most important and life-saving thing, that you can have on board a vessel. So other than that, besides boater education, there's really nothing, that we could provide, that, free of charge that, that I know of.
I feel like y'all have been doing a good job on promoting the St. Andrews Marina by posting sunset pictures, and you put one, I think yesterday about, it was pretty cute. It said, don't go to the beach to see the fleet unload, come here.
So we do have a large, most of our charter vessels will commercial fish in the wintertime. So basically they're taking passengers over the summer. Once snapper season ends, they will go to commercial fishing. And those fish, we have a tuna boat that brings in 5,000 to 6,000 pounds of tuna. That is all shipped up to Chicken of the Sea. We've got a shrimp boat. They don't run as much because farm shrimp comes in from Honduras and Nicaragua and some other places, basically cheaper than what they can go out and catch. But they do try to get out twice a year. But most of our commercial fishing vessels, they will catch anything from grouper to snapper. And those are also fish processing here in the either at Greg Abrams' place over there or out in Destin. And those will go to your local seafood restaurant. So it's really important to support that industry, because that is a big part of tourism for the panhandle, is the fishing industry.
Is y'all's webcam still up?
The webcam, we got a webcam operational. It was damaged by the hurricane back in 2018. So we got the webcam up and running, and right now it's on a rotational schedule that it will turn for the sunset, and then it will turn back and be stationary on the marina grounds. You can look at that at the Beach TV. There's a link to that. And they're ushering me off the stage.
I'll ask a few more questions. I think y'all are doing a fantastic job.
I got the hook back
You've got a few more minutes.
there. Okay, does anybody else got anything?
What's the status of the boat ramp at Carl Gray? It used to be kind of bumpy.
They redid that a couple of years ago.
Okay.
It's in pretty good shape.
Yeah, they have the bathrooms right there beside it.
Yeah, there was some talk about dredging that area, but it's there's seagrass there and it's all protected. So, it's one of those things you have to get a permit. They have to do seagrass studies. So that's a really painstaking process. So I don't know where we are on that, but the boat ramp is in really good shape. It was just
Good.
redone a couple of years ago.
They've got a little playground there and it's been really.
There's 2 playgrounds out there at Carl Gray. It's really nice to have grills out there now, restrooms, running water, power, everything you can need to make a day of it.
Picnic pavilion.
Yeah, the pavilions are really nice. They did a really good job out there, and most of that was FEMA funded with a little bit from Bay County on top of that. So it was, it's a good deal for the citizens of Panama City.
I have a suggestion, if we could somehow do it, if we could somehow put a railing to the, I don't know, with the east side of the bridge where people go and they jump the curb and go and park, and they seem to be putting a lot of trash right there on the,
You're talking right
on
off
the
of
halfway
98.
bridge, yeah, right there on 98.
I'll send a note to Keith, but I'm not sure whose area that is really.
I think it's a
It may
DOT
be-
and
Yeah, it may be part of the state, and
I brought it up to Mark McQueen and they had cleaned it out, and I saw that they'd also cleaned the area right there on the point where the little pond is by Gulf State College, but.
yeah, that might be part of the DOT though, so.
But we've been getting a lot of people, there'll be 4 or 5. It's just not a good look for the city in my opinion.
Gotcha. Anybody else?
That's time for one more question.
One more. Come on, Skipper, you're on a roll.
I had a lot of caffeine today.
All right, I yield my time.
There you go.
Yeah, you just advance on the.
Hello, I'm Jen Vigil, and I'm the president and CEO of Destination Panama City. Welcome to our facility. We're very glad that Tides and Talks happens here. First thing that I'm going to talk about today is going to be the Living Shoreline project. There's no place for me to put it up here, but we have a very miniature replica back there on the table. It's super heavy. As we go through the slides, you'll see how there's different reef balls that will be along the seawall. So first thing about Destination Panama City, we're a 501c6. We are not part of the city government of Panama City, and we are not part of the county government of Bay County. We are technically a vendor, and our job is to promote and market the city of Panama City to travelers. We are funded not by local tax. We don't get any of your property taxes. We are funded only by the 5% tourism development tax, which is assessed to any short-term rental. In the state of Florida, that's any rental that is 6 months or less. So we're talking about your Airbnbs, your hotel stays, things like that. So it's truly funded by travelers. We have a very minimal portion of our budget that is funded by sponsorships, event revenue, and grants, and really, really wonderful marketing co-ops that we have with some of our partners. We have a 7-member board of directors. 5 of those are the current seated city commission members of the city of Panama City. 2 of them are hotel partners. We are looking strongly this year at board recomposition to remove some of the elected officials and add more industry partners. So restaurateurs, retailers, and that would fall more in alignment with what other destination marketing organizations throughout the state have as their board composition. Our annual revenue is about $1.9 to $2.2 million per year. And moving into the project. So this is really a long project because we have to get a lot of permits, and it's actually happening right out front. So it's very fortuitous that this meeting is here today. The western seawall that's right out the window here we are not allowed to attach to the seawall. If you attach to the seawall, you have to go through a lot of structural engineering. So any kind of, I can point to the screen up here. Do I have it up there? One more. I can point to the screen up here. Any type of formation that is along the seawall has to be offset by 4 inches. They are bolted essentially into the ground and driven down so that they will not move, and so that they help wave attenuation. Right now, every July, we do a beach renourishment out here. First, we do coastal cleanup, then we do beach renourishment, so everything is ready for the July 4th holiday. But we do have a lot of erosion specifically in this one corner because of the wave activity that comes in on days that are like this morning when we had some really rough whitecaps out there. The picture that you see on the far right is actually AI generated, and it is what the seawall, what the living shoreline and seawall project could ultimately look like with what the top piece showing. All of the seawalls can be designed with a different variation of color, rock formation. The little circles you see in it are generally for putting in different types of native seagrass or shoreline fauna. As you can see, from the diagram, the type of reef balls that will be closest to the shoreline are much smaller than the ones that will be further down the seawall. Once we get out to where it is navigable water, the actual items have to be 6 feet under the surface of the water at low tide. The second thing you'll see, so this is phase 1. See if we can get to the next one. Phase 2 would actually be to put little heart snorkel reefs out into the bay here. That's sort of on hold at the moment. We did just finish our seagrass survey, which has to be done between May and October 1st of every year. So we very gladly finished on September 30th. What that shows us is that we are definitely in a zone of barren area. There is no seagrass in any of the portion that we are looking at putting this living seawall. We are working extensively with University of Florida IFAS and the Reef Ball Association from Central Florida in order to get the proper designs that would be most suitable for the area that we're in Northwest Florida and the type of ecological species we have in the bay. And the other thing, education, all along the reef ball, there will be posts that talk about why the living shoreline is important, what types of ecological activity will be going on beneath the water in terms of what kind of species of fish it will attract, what kind of crustaceans it will attract, that sort of thing. The other thing is funding. So the funding for it is about $350,000. Very generously, we've already been approved by St. Joe Foundation for $50,000. We'll still continue to seek other outside sponsorships, but Destination Panama City is committed to funding the project completely. The only part of the project we might not be able to do will be the heart. Next door neighbors are leasing the land for a pontoon boat rental, and they do have an application in for a submerged land lease for an L-shaped dock. Luckily, the L-shaped dock L's to the other way. So, does anyone have any questions about the project?
So you just touched a little bit on one of the possible challenges you're running into, but are there any other issues with like the implementation and the planning and in general that you've come up against?
Timing. Timing was an issue because we actually started and did an underwater survey. The survey got rejected because it wasn't during May to October 1st. So timing is an issue. It generally takes about 2 years to do these projects. We have really good partners with the Bay County University of Florida IFAS office. So they've been extremely helpful. The only other, I'm not going to say it's a challenge, but there is going to be a lot of education. I think we're all aware that this year people were hypersensitive to shark sightings and sharks being in the water. They live there. I'll tell you, I paddleboard out here multiple times a year, and to go from my office to the first channel marker out there and back is 1.5 miles. There are bull sharks all around the channel marker. I see them all the time. I know that they're there. We have a lovely lady that swims out here every single day of the year. It doesn't matter if it's December 31st or July 31st. She swims every single day. I talk to her about what she sees in the water. But I think because of the concept that it will increase ecological activity, people are afraid that if more fish come in, then more predator species will come in. And I mean, they're there anyway. Skipper?
I have some information that is an asset for us. South Walton has 16 design reefs off the coast in the Gulf. And it mirrors the same depth, and it goes a little deeper. And in the 10 years that they've had the 16 reefs, they've had 0 casualties, no drownings, no sharks, nothing like that. And they're highly successful, but they're also, not as accessible as this, so.
So so I actually worked on that project because before I was the president of here, I was the director over there. So that is a very near and dear project to my heart. And when I left there, I thought I would most likely not ever do sort of a snorkel reef or anything like that again until one day it was when Superintendent Husfeld was still at Bay District Schools, and he gave a presentation about the importance of swimming in children and the correlation to coping skills. And essentially, we have very different economical differences between the community that lives in Bay County and the community that lives in South Walton. There are, even though we are a coastal community, there was more, when they did a school survey, and this was probably a few years ago now, they found out that about 60 to 75% of the children that were in Bay County schools did not know how to swim. We're a coastal community with a really high number of percentage of our students that don't know how to swim. Children that know how to swim it's correlated that they have better coping skills because they're taught to float on their back, they're taught to tread water, they're taught to slow their breathing, things like that help you in difficult situations. So one of the things that we realized was because of the socioeconomical differences, a lot of the students that we have in our school district don't have the financial ability to get out on a boat or have a swimming pool in their backyard. So we were going to bring the accessibility to the students here so we could host a number of field trips and hopefully in the long run, really elevate the coping mechanisms for our local students and in turn have much more productive and higher potential for success long-term in their lives.
Do the hearts have an engineered purpose or are they just aesthetics?
So for us, it's love PC with the O being the heart. So it wasn't our idea, but when we were working with University of Florida, they're like, we think this would be great because where they're positioned, because the seawall is elevated up above the water, the surface of the water, you would be able to see the hearts down into the water and actually make out a shape because a heart's not that hard to see. But they've also been talking to, I don't know if he's a marine biologist, but he is a gentleman that studies wave attenuation. And basically they can put a technology in the reef ball that will monitor the wave activity. And they can have lights so that it will, based on what kind of wave action it is, the lights come on. So go ahead, do you know his name?
No, I don't. I'm sure he's
yeah,
a surfer. They've not waved.
He is a surfer. He's been here. And I honestly, I was supposed to go to the talk where he was at and I ended up having to go out of town. So I haven't been able to meet him yet. But it's pretty cool, the amount of data collection that can happen inside the reef balls.
One of my favorite spots to go is at the Hotel Indigo. I think it's the 5th floor bar.
Steam on
And-
5.
And it's got we get a lot of people viewing the sunset and also after dark, they have the glow in the dark.
The kayaks next
And the
door.
kayaks, so hopefully we'll be able to have people that
Yeah.
will be able to take pictures and send them on out, you know.
Yeah. There's, in terms of other outdoor recreation that we have just along this little alcove right here, the glow in the dark kayaks, the glow float, I think it's called. And that is really loved by so many people that come over. There's a ton of pontoon boat rentals that come out. But a little bit further down the shoreline, I believe they're going to, you probably have seen, they're putting in some posts and some rope for parking and things like that. It's something called King Splash, and it is a giant, I'm gonna say floating obstacle course for locals and visitors to enjoy. We haven't got that much information about it, except for we know the Price family is bringing it in. They also are leasing the land from Mr. Kingston. And the other thing, I just spoke at the Yacht Club Ladies Auxiliary today, so fresh on my mind is the Boat Parade of Lights. So Boat Parade of Lights is back for the second year since its hiatus, since the hurricane, and it's December 14th. There's probably about 7,000 people that come down for the Boat Parade of Lights just on this one marina, but it travels from the St. Andrews Bay Yacht Club location by this marina, past St. Andrews Marina, past Papa Joe's, and stops at the Hathaway Bridge. Yes.
Just want to read an online question. Did you say who was doing the monitoring post-construction?
For this still, we will most likely still work with University of Florida IFAS. If we are able to get the data collection devices, we will have to work directly with that marine biologist scientist.
When is the Parade of Lights?
It's December the 14th. Let me make sure that's right. I think I just read it on the sign when I came in.
I can go look at the poster.
Yes, December the 14th. Anyone else with any questions?
I just have another question. Have you had general support for putting this in or mixed feedback?
No, so what we've noticed when we first got here, we got to this building. I just want to tell you how very proud I am. We paid for this building in cash. We never had one bit of debt service on this building. We used to be at the old building on the corner of 10th and Beck. We were renting that building, trying to purchase it when the hurricane happened. Fortunately, the 110-year-old building and windows stood up like a champ. The less than 20-year-old roof peeled off like a sardine can. So all of our stuff was ruined and we were homeless. We came here and put a construction trailer on the parking lot. The hotel hadn't broke ground. There was nothing down here. And people didn't really like to come down here. And one of our goals as Destination Panama City is to make sure that the city of Panama City has an active waterfront. There were a lot of homeless people in this general area. And it took a lot to clean that up, from continual coastal cleanups to working with the neighborhood police to really getting the waterfront activated. We're doing different paddleboard races, different cornhole tournaments, different anything that we could do to get people to come down here. So our ability to activate the location really hinged on getting the community to come down and wanting to be here themselves. And now when I leave work every day, the parking lot is starting to fill. It's just that time of the year when the sun's setting, right when we're getting out of work. And there are people coming out here setting up their blankets. I can't tell you how many wedding proposals we've seen out there, like right at sunset. It's just so heartwarming, but it's night and day different from where we were to where we are. And I think at wherever that light switch went off for people, it really changed their mind from, I don't want to go there, to I'm going to continue to go there because that's an asset I still want to protect myself. So we're really appreciative of the support that we get from, especially the Cove neighborhood, who will come and patrol on their golf carts. The lady that watches our bay cam tells me within 5 minutes of it going offline, I don't even have to wait for the report to come in. I get a text from the people that watch that bay cam before I ever see the email that it's having a service interruption.
It couldn't be more perfect. It's like it was made to be here,
Yeah.
honestly. It's
Yeah, I
so
love the
perfect.
palm trees right there. It's just, they're natural too, and they're wild,
Yeah.
aren't planted.
Yeah,
That's-
nothing out there was planted
Volunteers.
except for the little bushes over there.
I'm glad the guy with the sword moved on, that he was scary.
Yes,
He was
yeah.
really scary.
There was a lot of crazy activity out here for a while, for a year, till I think we opened the door. We opened this place on July 2nd, 2021. And we invited the entire community down for the July 4th event. And that really changed the trajectory for what this waterfront is. So. Any other questions?
You mentioned education, a lot of education. What kind of education are you looking at?
So once the project is all day, 24-hour, 24/7 education will be the posts. We've already talked about the educational posts that will be placed along the shoreline. We also are working with a company called AutoCast that is an audible thing. So if you are on your phone, there'll be a QR code that you can scan and you can just hit the different tiles and it will actually read to you what is on the post. But then we're also hoping to work, like I said, with the local school districts to make sure that we're getting children out here with some of our local dive partners. We actually have a lot of retired FWC work employees that have in their retirement decided to become guides and outfitters for whether it's kayak tours to sailing lessons to dolphin spotting. Flippin' Awesome Adventures is one of my favorite with Chris Farley because he's a marine biologist, former FWC, and he takes people out on a different kind of experience. Like he'll actually dive in the water and get a sea star and explain to people what they are. He's trying to do a sea star program where they tag the sea stars. The tourists will actually help him tag the sea stars so he can do a study on the migration of sea stars because he believes their migration is much greater than what we believe it currently is today. So a lot of them have a wealth of information. So just working hand in hand with those former FWC employees will help us figure out the best ways to get information to the people because the #1 goal for Destination Panama City is a sustainable city. We don't want tourism to overshadow the life that we have. So you don't ever hear someone say, oh, I hate my city. They suck. And then you think, oh my God, I want to put that on my bucket list. It doesn't happen that way. It has to be a city that we love is a city that people love to visit. So the balance of locals versus visitors is very much dependent on the amount of education we give to the visitors so that they're cognitive about taking care of the asset that we have in St. Andrews Bay.
Have you had any luck with like the Mercury boat, maybe getting a sponsorship, the Mercury outboards or the new Japanese companies, is it Suzuki that's in?
Yeah, so we're holding off a little bit on getting sponsorships. St. Joe, we kind of had to go to from the beginning because they were a neighbor and we had to get permission from the neighbors on either side in order to move forward. We're thinking that once we know it's a sure thing, then we're gonna go start asking for money, but that permitting process is like a 2-year process. So we have a little bit of buffer time and we have other projects we're also asking for money for. So we're timing it right. Any other questions?
I have time for one more.
Thank you guys so much.
Melissa? Okay, I'm just gonna go get one of these scrubbers as a pointer.
I just want to say it's really great to be here. Is there anybody that is familiar with the Florida Trail? You?
Yes, because you have your meetings
Yeah.
here.
Anybody ever hiked any trails around? Okay, good. Well, I apologize because you guys got me. There are professional people that could have come and done this, but they work and then some of them are doing hurricane relief. But I want to tell you why I feel so unconfident is because I do a lot of hiking. That's basically what I do now. Kind of like hike and I travel a little bit with my mom who has a goal of seeing 100 countries before she dies, and we're getting really into some really obscure places. But I just have a passion to hike. I started hiking at Springer Mountain of the Appalachian Trail a couple of years ago. And right when I hit the trail, this woman, young woman was coming my way and she said, I have a big backpack on. And she said, are you hiking? And I'm like, yeah, I am. Why? And she goes, because your hair just looks too good to be out. I was like, oh, okay, I didn't know how to take that. But then later that year, I went out to Rocky Mountain National Park. Any of you ever been out there? I got a backcountry permit. So I have my backpack, I walked in because they make you go through a little rigmarole to get a pass to go back out there. And they started questioning me about my gear and wanting me to take it out and show it to them. And I finally said, you guys just don't believe I can hike, do you? You think I have a cheeseburger body. And not one of those rangers said, no, we don't feel that way. But finally, I had to go, they made me like take a test on, how not to call for search and rescue. And finally I said, look, I said to this one ranger, I know I have a cheeseburger body, but I really can't hike. I'm not going to disappoint you. I won't be calling. And he goes, I've really learned you can't judge a hiker by how they look. I said, there's just never any comfort in what these people are telling me. But anyway, I'm here. This is what you've got. I really do have a passion to hike. Some of this Florida Trail stuff, it just goes over my head. There's a lot I could talk about with the funding and where state funding comes in and where federal funding comes in, and that's under the Department of Agriculture and it gets money from the Department of Forestry. I'm not really good with that, but I can tell you why I like to hike. One thing that kind of brought me here is I didn't grow up in the States. I grew up in Europe. So I saw people who walked for necessity and for pleasure. And every time I came back to the States, I was in a car or a truck. And I thought, even as a young person, I noticed this huge difference between these countries. Also, my grandparents owned a campground in Williamsburg, Virginia. So, I used to talk to the campers and I learned about tents and just the whole camping culture and how to make fires and stuff like that. But one day somebody came up to me. I've lived in Bay County for 30 years. Someone came up and they said, you know what? There's this thing called the Florida Trail. And I just started laughing out loud. I thought, how could you have a trail and hike when there aren't any mountains? That is ludicrous. And I laughed about that for a while. But one day when I'm married to my husband, Daryl, one day when our children grew up and they were leaving the house, my husband could not cope with a lack of stress. He said, I want to find a challenge. I want to keep our stress level high. First of all, let's get 3 Chihuahuas. So we have 3 Chihuahua dogs. But he said, I want to dump a lot of time. I want to grow as a person. I want to join a volunteer organization. Well, I don't come from that kind of family. We have campgrounds and things. But it came down to Habitat for Humanity and the Florida Trail Association. And he chose the FTA, and I'm glad that he did because I can't build a house. I don't know anything about that, but I can hike, and I think I've been helpful. I don't know how many of you might be familiar with the Florida Trail. It believe this or not, it starts way down in Florida, and it ends on past Pensacola. Did anybody know that? Do you know that people actually? Has anybody here ever been on a cruise? Like a big cruise ship? You know how the captain is like the rock star? And everybody kind of, oh, there's the captain. Let's go eat dinner with him. Let's have a drink with him. Well, there are these things called through hikers. You hear about them up on the Appalachian Trail where, they'll start at Springer Mountain and go all the way to Katahdin. And did you know that there are people who do the same thing for the Florida Trail?
How many miles is it?
It's about between 15 and 16. It varies a little bit year to year. I'll talk about why. I'll talk about why and some of those variables. But I'll tell you, when I am on the trail and I see a through hiker, everything stops. And you know, I get a picture. It's really like the rock stars coming through our area. And it's just a really big deal, like those captains of cruise ships. But you can section hike, you can day hike, you can do a lot of things. We do a lot of water things. I personally lead a lot of hikes. I got into kayaking a few years ago and I went down the Swanee River in a kayak. That was really great. So I kind of tried to bring some of those skills back and start taking people. And we've been on the Chipola, Choctawhatchee, we go up to Holmes Creek, a lot of different places. I also do biking. I do take people backpacking. They don't tend to like that so much because they got to carry everything. But you know, if you want to go outside, I'm your person. I'll go with you. And I do like to introduce people to the trail. It started when we had COVID. I think I've been a member since 2016. But after COVID, you know, we weren't allowed to go out on the trails. Finally, a vaccine became available, and the Florida Trail Association said, if you get vaccinated and boosted and whatnot, you can take people out. Well, the first hike I led after COVID was in January of 2021. We went to Pine Lawn. You know, there were probably 12 people there. People were crying. It had been so long since they had been with other people and been in the woods. And it really has such a healing effect. That year I led 50 activities. I can't believe I did it, but I managed to do it. I wanted to start this slide. This is very typical of the trail in Northwest Florida, a little bit of Central Florida, maybe around Osceola. And you can see this is a nice soft trail. It's not always like that. Sometimes it goes through karst, you know, down in the Everglades. It goes through flooded area, like there's an area called Bradwell Bay, where sometimes we're walking in water up to our waist and we have our backpacks on our head. Also, it goes through sand like Fort Pickens at the, I have a hard time saying this, Gulf Shores National Seashore. But I wanted a woman so that everybody didn't think it was only men that worked on trails, but I'd say 2/3 of it is men. Anybody know what this is?
Please.
Yeah, when you hike, you follow a blaze in Florida, on the Florida Trail, ours is orange. Anybody know what color the Appalachian Trail is? White. Very, have you guys hiked before?
The Georgia section.
Oh, I think that's like the best. But I have been all the way up through, I have been all the way to Harper's Ferry. And I got to the bridge at Harper's Ferry where you go on into Maryland, and I thought, I think I need to leave the South. I think I can just stay in the South forever and be happy. So, okay. Oh, as far as history, you know, there's this guru, we call him, you know, he was like a rock star back throughout his life. He's an adventurer, a wildlife photographer. He really was instrumental in getting the Florida Trail started. And I think it was a time where a lot of, there was an explosion of cars and trucks on roads, and infrastructure was going through these wilderness places. And he was a big promoter of, let's keep a corridor, you know, from the tip of Florida all the way up to Pensacola. Let's keep something for people to enjoy. It is actually a National Scenic Trail, passed in 1983. That means that there's some funding that comes federally, and there's some guidelines we have to follow federally. Also, a big thing is we're covered by the department, the forestry department, as far as insurance. So when we're using chainsaws and mowers and things, that we have insurance to cover us and the volunteers. And you know, there's only 11 National Scenic Trails in the US. I don't want to spend time going through them because I don't. I only have 15 minutes. And as you can tell, I could spend 15 minutes just talking about myself. You can follow orange blazes of the Florida National Scenic Trail for nearly 1,600 miles, crossing more than 76 partner land management units within the states. this is different than the Appalachian Trail. Does anybody know how? There's a
We
huge.
got more mosquitoes.
I don't know, might be debatable in some places, but, the Appalachian Trail was started with eminent domain. So the government came in and took property from people, and it still has consequences today where sometimes members of those families will, they'll do things to the trail and to hikers to lessen their enjoyment on the trail. Florida, we would probably never do that. I mean, Florida is another beast. You know, land is really important to Floridians. One of the problems with this is though, that not only, do we have private, we have some public lands, you know, parks, national types of parks, also private land. Sometimes those people will say, we don't want to let hikers come through this year, and they'll close it. So that's why there's a little bit of variation in what you'll see for mileage. What is the mission? What's the Florida Trail out here to do? Well, it builds, maintains, protects, and promotes the Florida National Scenic Trail and networks of hiking trails throughout the state of Florida. And we'll talk more about that when I get a map up. Oh, everybody has to have a vision, right? Even Burger King. So here is the vision for the Florida Trail. A continuous, well-maintained, protected network of hiking trails on public lands that highlight the unique natural, scenic, cultural, and historic places in Florida. These trails are open to all, connecting a diverse and growing population to opportunities for recreation and meaningful volunteer work in Florida. I think that's really great because while you're out there volunteering, you have the opportunity to volunteer. You get to really teach people. One of some of the criteria for becoming a National Scenic Trail includes the natural, scenic, cultural, and historic parts of the trail. This is our trail. What are a couple things you notice about it?
There are options.
Yeah, there are options. So if you're gonna section hike, or you know, if you might think about through hiking, you're gonna have to plan it because there are some options here going around Lake Okeechobee. And they have their pros and cons, and people will tell you different things. Usually people start south, but not necessarily. Sometimes they will start north. But this is Big Cypress National Preserve. Has anybody been there? It's a tough hike, isn't it? I mean, it's not like up here in Northwest Florida. It's very different. But you get to choose which way you're gonna go. You know, our section, which I'll show you in a second, used to be a very popular section, but what happened?
Trees.
A hurricane. So now it's not what it used to be, but there are some really beautiful sections. Especially coming out of Live Oak, St. Mark's, the Apalachicola National Forest. And then just this spring, I had a friend who did the Florida Trail. She hiked it in 56 days, which is really phenomenal. She was doing about 30 miles a day. And, you know, she just finished the Pacific Crest Trail, another National Scenic Trail. So now she's a triple crowner. She's got Appalachian Trail, Continental Divide, and Pacific Crest. But she came and did Florida, which I thought was really kind of her to do because she blogs. But how many people a year do you think want to finish this hike? I think there's probably a couple thousand that are doing the Appalachian Trail. How many people do you think finish this hike every year?
100.
Well, it used to be 30 a few years ago, but then this woman came along, her name is Dixie, and she's an influencer in the hiking community. And she went ahead and went through and filmed everything she did through the Florida Trail, and she really loved it because she loves bugs and amphibians, and she just thought this was a magical place. And it was all real coming from our heart. I don't think we could have had a better cheerleader for the Florida Trail, because when I go back on the AT and I ask those hikers, you know, when I'm hanging around them at the shelters, I'll say, have you ever thought about hiking the Florida Trail? And they're like, no way. But along comes this girl. So now instead of 30, guess how many? 50. Maybe around 50 people. But, you know, it's very well used, I think. I think it's very well maintained. A lot of people will do section hikes. There's a popular one right here from Lake Okeechobee to the ocean called Ocean to Lake. You can do it in a few days. Another very popular one I did a couple of years ago, I had a friend drop me off in Alabama, and I came down, and I think it might be Milton that I came down to. But that is an option for an official start or finish this Alabama spur. These are just some current statistics. This is just giving, you know, like if the Indian reservation down in South Florida lets us pass through that year, you have to get a lot of permits to actually be a through hiker. If all the private people keep their land open, then you come out to about 1,100 of trail through the woods or the beach. This number, can anybody think of what that is? The 446? It stays fairly stable. That is the road walking. So in between your forested areas, you have to walk on a road. And that is a big problem, because does anybody here like to walk on highways? Yeah, I think it can be dangerous. And it's not very fun when it is raining and, you know, you don't think people can see you very well. This is really one of the problems, one of the detriments to the Florida Trail. And I think one of the reasons it's not as popular as other trails, besides the lack of mountains. Here's that little spur trail, which I think I did it in a couple, 2 or 3 days. It makes for a really nice trail to come down from Alabama. And this is our chapters. We have 19 chapters. So in Gainesville is the main office. I think there's about 10 to 12 regular full-time employees that run the Florida Trail Association organization. And in all these chapters are the volunteers, the people who have all been given a little piece of trail. Maybe not necessarily little. I think we have about 50 or 60 miles. I'm not exactly sure. But they're all given a little piece of trail to maintain and take care of, which consists of sometimes a lot of chainsawing. You know, we have a lot of chainsaws up in Northwest Florida. I'm very proud of that. Although last night at a meeting, someone told me that our sister chapter had more shiny equipment than we did. I immediately put in a request for some new shinier stuff. I don't think we'll ever get it, but we go through a lot of chainsaws, especially after the hurricane. One of the goals with Jim Kern when he was developing a plan for the Florida Trail is he wanted Floridians to not be more than like an hour away from the Florida Trail to be able to enjoy it. I really honestly think there's probably some areas that might be like an hour and a half, you know, like over here, since the trail's going this way. But for us, I live over kind of like around 23rd Street, Sam's Club, and it takes me about 45 minutes to get to a place to hike on the trail. This is just a really, there is a goal in Florida to purchase. You know, we're not going to use eminent domain, so you have to go and try to buy this land. So when land becomes available, if the Florida Trail Association has the funds, they do try to purchase land to keep people off the roads. So one of their big goals is to close the gaps in the Florida Trail through long-range planning, acquisition, and agreements for long-term protection of the trail corridor. And these are just some of the areas that are notorious for their road walks. in our area, we have this, I think it's coming out of Alpha. You do a lot of road walking. That's not so much fun. You cross over 231 and walk down Scotts Road to follow it into the woods. And then when you come out of Route 20, you come out of Econfina or Northwest Florida Water Management District, you have a little bit of a road walk to Pine Log, which I'll kind of show you our area better. But they really are working on it. I don't know how far they get each year, not very far, but they try. And this is our area. We start at the Apalachicola River and go over to the Choctawhatchee River. You can see most of it is kind of above Route 20, kind of goes into Washington County. We have, there's like a little section, it's not even 2 miles that we go take care of called in Alpha. It does get people off the road, but they complain that they end up walking more to get back on the road. So a lot of people skip it, but this is all road walk here. My favorite place, it always helps me feel like I'm going home, is when you cross 231, you go down Scott Road and pick up this portion in Northwest Water Management District. And it really, it just used to be this beautiful, magical place. And after the hurricane, it was absolutely devastated. It was apocalyptic. And one day, very shortly after the hurricane, it's all we could think about. Our own home was destroyed, but we just kept thinking. So we kind of snuck up there to Scott Road and went and looked at it. And it was, it took us 2 years. I don't know how many chainsaws we went through. There were a lot of volunteer organizations that came to help us clear it out. But, it's getting better now, but it's such a beautiful hike there. You're right next to Econfina. We also go to Econfina to kayak a lot and sometimes snorkel around and dive at the springs. So it's a very interesting place. There's an area that we pass through called Rattlesnake Lake. And, for several years after the hurricane, it was flooded. Did anybody hear about this? I heard it rumored. I never asked water management if this was true. I heard they got a grant for like $1 million to try to displace some of that water because it covered the trail and it covered some of these picnic areas. And I heard that nothing, was really successful. And not very long ago, I looked up, what was happening there? Was it the lack of absorption because there were no tree roots? But basically, it was just a lot of rain in those years from 2018 to 2022. Very, very interesting though. I don't know, is anybody familiar with Pine Log? Yeah. That's a nice little park. It has a west side and an east side. Has some nice bodies of creeks going through it that we've been on. I enjoy that. In fact, we have hikes there this Sunday. But that's one of my favorite places. I really do enjoy the water management district area though.
We did that section this spring and it was beautiful.
Did you like it?
Yeah.
You did from Scott Road down? Yeah, did you go all the way through?
It did about
10 miles.
Yeah, like you did a Devil's Hole.
I think so. There's
Yeah,
a little
yeah.
camping there. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, there's free camping there if you want to go camping. It's a really great area though. I just think it's a little treasure. And when you think about how Northwest Florida is a biodiversity hotspot, I take people hiking and they come from the mountains and move to Florida. I don't know what they expect. And they're like, this is so boring. I can't stand it anymore. I'm like, you have to dig deep. You have to start noticing the fossils in the karsts on the Econfina Creek. And you have to find your beauty. You have to work for it sometimes. It's not all going to be these beautiful vistas. And listen, I've gotten frustrated in Rocky Mountain National Park because it was so beautiful. It made me mad. I would try to take pictures. I'm like, this just isn't coming out the way I see it in my eyes. But I just love that area. It's great for one overnight backpack. You do 10 miles, spend the night, do another 10 miles. My friend who finished the Florida Trail, that's where she ended at Devil's Hole. And she jumped in the hole. And I got some video of her, so that was like really exciting that day. This is where you sign up for our activities. We do a lot of different things. We do maintenance, kayaking, biking. My mom was done. Biking, kayaking, hiking, and a lot of trail maintenance, because somebody has to keep the trails open for people doing day hikes, doing section hikes, and the rock stars that pass through. If we were to get like a bad word from them, it would be devastating. You know, if they came through and said, we did not like the Panhandle chapter region, you know, we'd all be so ashamed. And we talked about all these, about ways to get involved, and I do have a few things on the back table. I wish I had time to go into Leave No Trace. It's pretty, you know, you could take a whole class, like a whole week you can just spend on Leave No Trace. But I do have some little cards back there. You can help yourself too. I have some magazines that we give out for members. I think membership is like $40 a year. I have a couple children's books, which I absolutely adore. It's always been my dream to take some children on the trail. And I did do it with Girls Inc. once, and they just ate so much food. I could not keep up with eating them, but they did hike with me. I made these are some QR codes, and I did, one is to the Florida Trail Association website. This is Panhandle Chapter Meetup site, the Leave No Trace, if you want more information about that. And then I went ahead and did factors driving persistent compound flooding in Northwest Florida in 2018 to 2022. I think it's a PowerPoint woman did. I'm sorry, I don't know her name. She deserves to be recognized for that. But I just was really fascinated by the information. I know this has been a lot of talking. I hope you got something out of it.
We can tell you love the trail.
I know, it's
It's
just
inspiring.
it's just so strange. But I do love taking women, you know, and trying to get them comfortable. A lot of times they're afraid of bears and pumas. I'm like, I don't think we have any pumas. You might find a domestic cat in the woods, but you know, we're not gonna get attacked. I've never even seen a bear in Florida. Any questions?
How do you know who's blocking their yard that year? Is it on your website?
Yeah, it will be on the actual Florida Trail Association
Okay,
website.
because you don't want to get going and go, oh, crap, now you gotta go back.
When you decide to do that type of hike, you really have to get the information. And I think you buy a packet of maps. So you will actually have handheld maps, and they do updates, GPS updates. So
Okay.
before you go out, you know, on that type of trip, you really need to check and see.
And we had a lot of ticks in the spring. Do you find that normal or just once in a while occurrence?
It depends on where I am. I had a whole army of seed ticks once
Yeah.
crawling up. I told my doctor, he thought I was psychotic. But my dad died in 2020 with neurological Lyme disease. Well, I am a big proponent of permethrin. Anything, I don't always recommend homemade things. People will bring those in. I'm like, go for the big stuff. Yeah, but yeah, especially east of us in Toria, have you heard that, in Garden of Eden? Sometimes, and pine log will have a lot. I haven't noticed a lot.
Usually lack of fire helps to keep them down. I think so.
Fire and possums, I guess.
Right.
I can take some of the possums in my yard and rent them out to these places.
I got a question online about how they can sign up to help maintain the trail.
Oh, I would love that. I don't know, is there a way that you can take a
I
picture
can
of
send the
this?
link in the chat.
Yeah, because I have a QR code for our Panhandle chapter meetup site. And I would use the code because it's kind of hard to find just going in. Sometimes you can put hiking as your interest in meetup in this region, and it will take you to our meetup site. And that's where you get all the information about which, we call them work parties. They're not real parties. which days and who's going out for how long. We do a lot of them on Saturdays, but the state organization, the actual FTA, a couple times a year will bring everybody to certain places, certain regions in the state. And I have a handout over there about that.
And you all meet here, how often?
I don't think we meet here. I think we just went over to Science and Discovery.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they need some help getting their little trail open. And we've been working on that and working on it, because those kids, when we go over there, they will run to the trail and want to go on it.
Okay.
They've done a lot of work since the hurricane inside the building, but like getting the property.
Looks great.
Yeah, getting the rest of it.
You know, the city of Panama City has a big grant to improve some of the water stuff, but they're also doing invasive control. They can't get a Science and Discovery Center to sign up.
I'm
And I
surprised.
think they even offered to help with some of the hurricane cleanup.
Because
It's a lot of fun.
a lot of it is cleaned up now, but before the hurricane, they had gone and done a lot of work on their invasives. And I was just shocked by what a great job, and now they're all back.
Right.
But I think we just need some lumber to continue with the fencing. So the kids can go back there, because they really want to go.
But I wonder, I can ask if that would be part, I know they have maybe more money than they know where to spend it.
Well,
So,
if you.
and that area is in the Robinson Bayou
Because
area.
we have to do work for them in order to meet them. We
Okay,
have a certain number of hours. that we
all
have
right,
to do. Yeah, that would be great.
but I'll reach out and ask them what might qualify. It'd be great to get them included.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,
you,
thank
Melissa,
you.
Oh, okay. Speaking. That was a wild ride.
I don't know, it's okay, we just, gotta start cleaning up, but you guys are all.
I did have some magnets. I'll put some more out, but there's some literature back there.
The meeting is pretty active too, isn't it? I saw there was like 3,000 people in there.
Oh, no, it has a huge line. I think that we need to have some. But, you know, it's basically. See,